away from abuse. When I walked away, for example, oh my goodness, the criticisms. Why did you leave? A pastor was talking to me one day and he said, why? How could you do that? And then he hung up on me.
Welcome to the Empowered Women channel with your host, Coach Depo Lipidi. Coach Depo, a certified leadership coach and author, brings you the Word of God today. It is our hope that today's message will encourage and empower you to do great things in your life. Be blessed as you listen.
Hello and welcome to the Empowered Women channel. I am your host, Coach D. It's an honor to be back. It's always a pleasure to come speak to people who love the Lord. And today I want to talk about something very, very important to me, something I'm passionate about. We want to talk about how abuse impacts mental health. As you all know, I am a survivor of abuse, 3+ decades of abuse. Initially, I didn't know I was being abused, but eventually when I recognized what I was dealing with, God gave me grace and strength to walk away. And here I am today. My goal is simple: to help people who've been through it survive, but beyond that, to also educate people on the impact of abuse. So today, I want to talk about how abuse impacts mental health. And I have with me a very special person to discuss this topic. He is Dr. Divine Chiangeh. Welcome, Dr. Chiangeh.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks.
I'm so
Thanks for having me.
Able to make it, and I'm excited for the conversation we're going to have today. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Chiangeh. He was born in Cameroon, West Central Africa. Well, I don't know why they keep saying West Central Africa. We're just West Africa.
It is west of Central Africa. So they're just trying to identify where it is in the map.
I know, but we're just West Africa. Okay, so he was born in Cameroon, West Central Africa. He is a licensed clinical psychologist, and this is one of the reasons we have him speaking here. His career spans over more than 15 years. That's a long time. His top specialties are anxiety, depression, relationship issues, PTSD. Why is PTSD important? Because people who go through abuse often suffer from complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. So it's great that we have him here. He can speak to that if we get there today. He started with a bachelor's in mass communication and journalism. How he went from that to medicine, I have no idea. But, you know, he has an MBA, he has a PhD in public health from Walden University. And then he got a second doctorate. This time it was in psychology, clinical psychology, from California Southern University, and this was in 2021. Again, he's a licensed clinical psychologist. He's authorized to practice in multiple states, and he is an experienced consultant with Montgomery County in Maryland. Interestingly, I used to live in Maryland when I first got to the US. It's a beautiful place, lovely place. Montgomery County is where the influential people are, so that's where he's at. If you need to contact him, we'll let you have his details. He's taught health education, but the biggest thing he does right now is that he's the founder of Community Health Education and Research Corporation, CHERC. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it's a chapter of the Mental Health Association of Maryland in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. Join me again in welcoming Dr. Divine Chiangeh.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the warm welcome, Coach D. I appreciate you, and thanks for inviting me.
I'm glad you were able to make it. Let me start by asking you one simple question. We're talking about how abuse impacts mental health. And my first question is, as a clinical psychologist, how do you clinically define abuse?
Well, abuse is a very broad term, as you know. And in terms of being clinically significant, we would have to piece it out a little bit. Okay. A lot of us, when we hear about abuse, we instinctively think about the physical aspect of
Correct.
abuse, because the physical aspect is what shows outside. When you're physically abused, you can have bruises, you can have wounds. Some people are not fortunate to get out alive. So that is the physical aspect of abuse. And then we have the psychological or emotional aspect of abuse. And unfortunately, even though people don't recognize this, the psychological or emotional aspect of abuse is even far devastating, even more than the physical part, which are things like someone makes you feel like you are not enough. Someone constantly makes you have low self-esteem by some of the things that they tell you about yourself, and you tend to believe it, by some of the things that they put you through without necessarily impacting physical harm. So all of those are classified under emotional abuse. And in terms of our conversation, these two types of abuse, those are really what stand out. And of course, there are many different forms of abuse, but the physical and the emotional part are really what we would focus on in terms of how it affects our physical and mental health. And so abuse is anything that can be intentionally impacted on you, that makes you that causes harm in one way or the other. It can be physical harm, it can be emotional harm, but it needs to be intentional, and it needs to cause physical or emotional harm. That is what we would term as abuse.
Thank you so much for that definition. A lot of people do not even know that they are being abused. For example, I did not know that I was being abused for the longest time. I took in everything. I was willing to make it work. I stooped low. I shrunk, for somebody else to shine. And these things, mine was more emotional. The verbal abuse, financial abuse, a lot of those things, they are overlooked, but they contribute to the abuse. Now that we've talked about that, we are talking about the impact on the mental health. And this is something that a lot of people don't know. They don't know that abuse impacts the mental health. Last month was Mental Health Awareness Month. This month is Recovery Month, talking about recovering from PTSD. So how does the brain and the nervous system, how do they respond to abuse, to chronic abuse especially?
Yeah. So actually, the brain is one of the most central organs of the body. So think about it like a control system of the entire body. So if you've ever been in an airport control room where all the planes are out in the air, but they're not really seeing each other, and then there's a control system that manages everything and transmits messages to the different pilots about the particular route that they are supposed to take, and that's why we don't have clashes in the air. So the brain plays one of those central roles. And in terms of how abuse really affects the body as a whole, so if we think back to our evolution as humans, when we used to live in the wild, we used to be on survival mode all the time. And our natural response when we are in survival mode is to fight or flight or freeze. So we have carried those evolutional tendencies for thousands of years and thousands of generations up till now. So each of us, we actually have that. And so when you are depressed, when you are anxious, or when something happens to you that is perceived as some form of a threat to your normal living, to your normal body, to who you are, the brain does not recognize that as that particular thing happening to you. What the brain recognizes is that there is a threat. There is a threat, and then because there's a threat, it needs to respond to that threat. Similar to how we were in the wild billions of years ago, and it's the same response system. So when you are abused, what happens is your brain tries to reconcile that difference because you are impacted by the abuse. So the brain sees that as a threat. So in its first instinct, it secretes some hormones like cortisol, the adrenaline, because it perceives that there is trouble. Let's go and fight. Let's neutralize this trouble. So that's how it sees it. And of course, the cortisol, the adrenaline, it gets down, it tries to fight everything that is going on, which is good for a very short time. That's why we have some responses that are innate in us. If there is danger, we run faster. When we don't even think, we can jump higher fences because we just respond by instinct. So it's the cortisol and the adrenaline that is being secreted by the brain. So it is a protective factor. But when you are abused, unfortunately, those chemicals and hormones are secreted constantly. And then it loses its beneficial effects because rather than these chemicals trying to help you stop something, now it starts affecting all the organs and systems in your body. So it starts affecting your cardiovascular system, your respiratory system, your digestive system. That's why some people, when they are abused, they sweat, they pee on their body, they fear, they panic, all of those responses. It's because everything now is going on for a long time. So it affects everything. So when you're abused, it can affect your cardiovascular system. So that's a risk factor for heart disease in itself, risk factor for some cancers, risk factor for digestive issues. So all organs and systems in the body is affected because, the body, organs and systems, they depend on each other. Right. So when one is affected, it's like all the other systems are impacted because think of it like a relay type of a race. In a relay race, you have to run and give the other person the button to run. So if you are slowed down while running, it means the other person that you had to give the baton is going to be slow as well. So it affects the whole entire body. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing is it doesn't just affect the brain, it affects everything. I met a lady who ended up with, I think it was lupus, years and years of abuse. I also have a friend who, just to confirm that these things affect everybody, she lost sight in one eye and had to have surgery for her eye to be, it was the pressure of the abuse on her blood vessels burst one day, and then she had to have surgery. 5 years to the day, she had another burst in the other eye. Luckily for her, the doctor that operated the first one had, even though he was older, he had not exited practice. It was still in practice. So she was able to get the other eye operated on as well. But today she wears glasses. Thank God she's alive. But these are some of the impacts that people do not know about, because when women walk away from abuse, when I walked away, for example, oh my goodness, the criticisms, why did you leave? A pastor was talking to me one day and he said, why? How could you do that? And then he hung up on me. And I'm like, you need to understand some of the things that women go through. And I'm talking to some pastors and I'm saying, please understand that this is beyond just marital issues. We're talking about the health of people. So if the brain is affected, cortisol is released, people get diabetes, people get anxiety attacks, people get panic attacks. All of these things, the woman is dying slowly. And you just mentioned one thing. Some of these things are tied to cancers. But because people do not know that, you keep hearing people say, just wait, just pray more. I was told to pray more. Yes, prayer works. I believe in the efficacy of prayer. But when your life is in danger, and this is why we're talking about how abuse impacts the mental health, if your life is in danger, you walk in fear. I remember that I would sleep with one eye open because I was afraid of the next thing. So tell me some of the ways that abuse impacts the mental health. So when we're talking about mental health now, a lot of people think when you say mental health, you're talking about mad people on the streets, crazy people. No, but that's not what we're talking about. So first of all, maybe tell us what we mean by mental health. When we say take care of your mental health, what exactly are we saying from the perspective of you as a psychologist?
And I'm glad you said that, because mental health has cultural tone to it. Because when I was growing up in Cameroon, when we hear that someone has mental issues or mental health issues, that's exactly who we used to think about. Those mad people who maybe do not even wear any clothes. They walk around the streets. They eat from the garbage places. They're all unkempt. They're all looking very dirty.
Yeah.
Those are the people that we say, oh, this person has a mental issue. We never used to understand, especially coming from that background, what mental health really is. Right. And really, these days, you see people smiling. You see people dressed up, looking good. You see couples wearing the same designer outfits, the same colors, holding hands and laughing and smiling. You see pictures on Facebook, Instagram, and you're like, oh my goodness, I want to get married. I just want to be exactly like that couple. But if you were a fly in the walls of their bedroom, you would see something completely different. And so mental health has a much more broader perspective than we seem to understand. And so if you ask me what is mental health, I'd say mental health is really everything. Because we go through life, and life also goes through us. And by that, I mean that when we go through life, it's very natural. You can be the happiest person in the world, but it's very natural that you'd experience some stresses sometimes in your life. It can be financial stresses. It can be relationship stresses. It can be you having some issues with your kids. It can be you having some issues with your family. It can be you having some issues with your job. It can be you having some issues with yourself. It can be health issues. It can be physical health issues that impact your mental health. So mental health is anything that bothers the mind. And of course, there are levels to it. There is serious mental illness. There is basic mental illness. It's like the different levels of depression. There's some that is just stress, or maybe just a burnout from work. And then there's some that is stress. There is some that is acute stress. There is depression, and even depression has levels to it. There is mild depression. There is moderate depression. There is serious depression. So it varies, but it's everything. And then there is anxiety. Anxiety is just worry, and we all worry. Everybody does worry. And so if you're worrying about things that you cannot control, that's a risk factor to anxiety. And then there is PTSD, which just means something happened in the past and it was so wild, and now it's affecting your present and future. There is psychosis, which just means that your mind is divorced from reality. So there are many different mental disorders. And if you see the breakdown of mental disorders, you must identify yourself with something around that realm sometime in your life. So we all have had mental disorders. We've just not been diagnosed with it. So it's just one of those things that really should be very important, because it does affect all of us, or it has affected all of us at one point in our life. Maybe not to the extent of a diagnosis, because it has to meet some certain criteria before we get to that extent. But I'd say mental health is really everything, and we should prioritize it. And the reason why I talked about Cameroon and Africa and the culture and how we define mental health is because it's much more broader. Because the cultural tone to mental health has some issues in the culture that for some people may be a risk factor to mental health, and for some people may be a strengthening factor. So it really does depend. Like our culture, our tradition, in some places the rituals or traditions prior to marriage. So think about like arranged marriages, for example, which could be a culture in, I know that's popular in the East. It was popular in Africa at some point, but mostly in the Eastern traditions, like in India, Pakistan, where some, I had a student, this was about 10 years ago, and she was looking forward to getting married, and she had never met her husband before. And the first time that she was supposed to see her husband was actually on the day of her marriage. So this was something that was just arranged between the families, the bride price and everything. And then, so if you think about, so that is a culture. Now, do some of those marriages work well? Perfectly. We've had some people in those marriages that have lived happily ever after. But do some not work well? A lot of them. So these are some of the risk factors that can influence mental health. So there is a cultural aspect to it, even with the definition of mental health, the risk factors for getting mental illness and all that stuff. So there is a lot of things to consider. It's all a mixture of factors. And that's why when you have a patient that has mental illness, you would need to do a very detailed assessment to understand their psychosocial background and the impact of that background to their mental health. Because some of those factors can be strengthening and some can be weakening and a big risk factor for mental illness. So yeah,
that was a very elaborate explanation, but thank you for going into all those different dimensions. Can I summarize it by saying that anything that disturbs your mind can be said to be affecting your mental health, because the seat of the mental health is really the mind. So once the mind begins to go off on a tangent, then we can start talking about mental health issues. But a lot of people do not even know that they have mental health issues. So in cases of abuse, sometimes that abuse is stemming from a mental health issue. I remember speaking to somebody, who was abusive, and I said, "Why don't you go see a doctor?" He said, "I'm not mad. I'm not mad." I said, "I didn't say you're mad. I just said maybe you need to be examined based on how your mind is working. Your mental faculty seems to be off. Maybe that's the psychosis you were talking about." But there are people who don't even know that what they have is a mental issue. Now, some of them know, but because again of the culture, they don't want to go see a doctor. So thank you for breaking it down.
And let me just add this little breakdown so people can easily identify. And so think of it like thoughts. So everything that happens to us, it starts with a thought. You cannot do something that you don't think about. And so think about thoughts. So if your thoughts are not sanitized, your thoughts affect your feelings, and your feelings affect your action. So anything that affects thoughts, feelings, and actions is going to be an impact on mental health, which is everything that we do. You can have happy thoughts, you can have angry thoughts, you can have thoughts of disgust, but it needs to affect thoughts, feelings, before it's transitioned to action, which is all about how the mind and the mental health works.
What you think is who you become.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. I mean, for my listeners, please, what are your thoughts like? Make sure you think positive thoughts. Make sure you are focused on things that help your mind to stay healthy and not veer off into the space of mental health issues. Still talking about abuse and the impact on mental health, there is one question that is uppermost in my mind. And the reason I'm going to ask this is, I work with women, and I've spoken to a lot of women since I had the opportunity to share that I walked away from abuse. Because I actually told my story on social media. And a lot of people have talked to me about their health. Their health failed during the marriage because of all the pressure. Now that goes back to the cortisol you were talking about. Cortisol levels rose, and then adrenaline rose. Everything was out of whack, and they developed some ailments. I had some too, but I thank God that mercy found me, and God has done a lot of reversals in that regard. But some people still deal with it. Some people don't get out of it forever. Can you tell us some of the most common health conditions that develop as a result of abuse?
Yeah. So when think about abuse, so I'll start with emotional abuse, because it is very common, and some people are not even able to identify it. Abuse, unfortunately, it can be an addiction, and that's why some people stay. I say an addiction because there is a cycle. There's a cycle, and abuse has been studied quite extensively, and it begs the question: why do some people stay in abusive relationships? Because you would think that if you're in an abusive relationship, then that's your cue to be out. But why do some people really stay? It's because it has an addictive component to it. So think about it this way: there is a problem in the relationship, and then anger starts to flare. Arguments start coming up. This person starts yelling, and then maybe one partner gets physically violent and impacts the other partner negatively, and there's wounds, there's scars, and women are mostly the victims of this. When they get beaten up, then of course the man apologizes now to the woman, brings flowers, takes the woman shopping, gives money, and then they have maybe make-up sex even, and then after the woman receives all of that, then forgives the man, then the cycle starts all over again. Yes. And so it is a cycle, and that cycle is very addictive. Now, there are components of that cycle that are very negative, of course. The physical beatings and the torture, But of course, because there is an expectation of, okay, the next cycle is coming when it's going to be flowers, shopping, money, and all of that stuff. That's interesting, entertaining. Then the man apologizes, begs. That's also very good. And then the cycle repeats itself. So it is a cycle, and it is very impactful, because when you get addicted to that cycle, it's very difficult to pull yourself out. And then that is one thing. The cycle itself is addictive. And then emotional abuse also makes you think very less of yourself. You have low confidence, you have low self-esteem, you see yourself like there is nowhere you can go, or there is nothing, or there is no other person that would accept the image of you that you have come to accept as who you are. So let's say you are in an abusive relationship, and your partner constantly tells you, you are overweight, you are ugly, you don't even work, you don't contribute anything to this household. You should be grateful that you are married to me, because I've changed your life, I've changed your family's life. Even a lie repeated a lot of times can start sounding like the truth. And so because of that, you start believing that that's really who you are. And you start thinking that there is nowhere else to go. There is, you can't do better than that. You start thinking, I am already old, I have kids, I have to raise these kids, it's better to stay. And in some cultures, divorce is frowned upon. And it's cultural suicide when you think about divorce, because then there is so much stigma that is attached to it, because it's very negative in some cultures. And so all of those pieces all contribute and add to that puzzle. And that's why sometimes it gets very difficult to get out of abuse, because there are many things that are relevant to why you actually stay. And you would have to understand that when we talk about self-harm in terms of clinical self-harm, it is not only when you take a knife and try to cut yourself and see blood oozing out. Staying in an abusive relationship, when you know it is abusive, when you know it impacts you negatively, that is self-harm. That is self-harm at its core, because what you are doing is, you are no different from that person that cuts himself. You are no different from that person that wants to stand at the tallest height of a bridge and jump and die. You are really no different from that person, because what you're doing is, you are placing yourself in a situation where you are getting harmed, and you are not doing anything about it. So now, if you recalibrate and you start thinking about yourself, your life as a human, like what is really important for me? Is it happiness? Is it the financials? Is it the house? Is it what is really important for my life right now? Now, if you ask yourself that deep question and you think deeply about it, you would realize that there are lots of things that cannot really be bought, like your peace, just being able to wake up without any worry that someone is going to impact harm on you. Like your thoughts, like love, a lot of things that are the backbone of who we are, that holds the most importance, are priceless. They don't cost anything. Like if you look at oxygen, we breathe oxygen. The moment we cease from breathing, we are going to not exist, but it's free. So water, you see water everywhere, it's all free. But something that is very expensive, like the diamonds that we wear, very expensive, but we don't really need it to actually live and survive. So life has an inverse relationship with what is necessary. So a lot of times we stay in abusive relationships because we look more of what we think that we need or what we think is necessary for us to live and survive, and we ignore what we actually need. And so, like your peace, like your sanity, like your happiness, those are the oxygen, those are the water that is readily available for us to grasp. But we stay because we are looking for the diamonds that we don't really need to survive. And so you will need to ask yourself, what is the deep thing that you really need? Do you really need oxygen? Do you need water? Or you need diamonds to survive? So when you ask yourself that question, then it starts becoming very easy to spot abuse, because the things that glue you to stay in that abusive relationship, those are the diamonds that you think that you need. But the things that you get starved out of is the water and the oxygen that you really need. So you have to make the wise choice.
Yes, you have to make the wise choice. I stayed, and I'll tell you why I stayed. Talking about the diamonds. One of the reasons I stayed was, first of all, I didn't even know I was being abused. Now, growing up, we watched our mothers endure pain.
Right.
And they tell you as you're going into marriage that marriage is a school. In school, you may struggle, but you have to endure to the very end. You see people celebrating 50 years of marriage, but 50 years of pain really is what they have been through. So I personally stayed because, one, I didn't know I was being abused. Two, I thought, you know what, I have to make this work. Right? But after a while, somebody said to me, have you heard of narcissism? And then I started researching it. That's actually how my journey to becoming a trauma-informed coach started, from my own lived experience. And so I started to do research. And that's how I learned about cortisol, about the mind, about the brain, and all these things we're talking about today.
Right.
And so there are many other women like me who don't know that they're being abused. But to your point, when you start asking questions, you start to spot the abuse. Once I recognized what I was dealing with, it took years of research and studying and going to school, becoming a trauma-informed coach. It took years for me to know what I was dealing with. But then I started to ask the hard questions. And then, it took grace and courage and strength to walk away. It wasn't easy, but eventually I did. But before I did, there were a lot of ailments in my life, and there are other women too who've had ailments. I want us to go back to that matter of some of the health conditions that develop as a result of abuse or after abuse.
Right.
I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for the doctors that have helped me over the years. But in this season of my life that I've chosen oxygen and water, I see the difference in what the doctors are doing, So let's talk again about some of the ailments that we see as a result of women staying in abuse. And the reason I want us to talk about it is a lot of people, pastors included, do not know some of these things. And my goal is to educate them, to help them know, even some of the women in need. A woman said to me, God has not told me to leave. And I just said, whatever you do, take care of yourself. I didn't leave because, the Bible says until Moses came of age, until he came to himself, he didn't know that it was time to leave Pharaoh's palace. And then he said, I'm no longer the son of Pharaoh's daughter. I am me. I am my own person. And he chose himself, Let's talk about some of the ailments that people deal with. Abuse does not know gender. Abuse has no gender. It's just, more women, 1 in every 4 women suffer abuse. but nobody talks about the ailments that they deal with as a result of the abuse. They tell them you just have to endure, just have to pray more, just have to be patient. Patient until they die.
Yeah.
So please talk about some of the ailments that women deal with.
Like I said when we started talking, so the body is very interconnected, right? So so there is the mental piece, there is the physical piece. So there's mental health, there is the physical health, and it's all interconnected and interrelated. So if you think about the body like a bag, and then there is water. So think about a bag, and then there is water, and think about the water being pure and clear, and everything is there. Then anything else that adds to that water inside that bucket changes the form of water in one way or the other. So if you add a little color, it changes the color of the water. If you add some powder, that is spicy, it makes the water spicy. If you add some salt, it makes the water salty. So think about the impact of abuse on physical and mental health just like that. So because when you are abused, the brain interprets it differently, as we started speaking when we started this conversation. So it activates the brain to secrete some chemicals in your body. And now when those chemicals are secreted in your body, and there are many different chemicals besides the cortisol and adrenaline, depending on what is going on, and it affects different organs and systems in the body in different proportions. In some cases, some of the illnesses that we have, even the ones that are genetic, that's the ones that we are predisposed based on our family background, our history, our genes, and all of that. Even if those genes are dormant, they are not active, you can be at risk for heart disease, for example, but because of your healthy lifestyle, you don't have heart disease. But once you start getting mental issues, you sink into depression. Those chemicals start flowing through your body. It starts increasing your chances of getting the heart disease. You can be predisposed for some cancers, or maybe even not. But because the cortisol, adrenaline, and many other chemicals were secreted as a result of the abuse, it activates some certain pipes in your body to secrete some certain things, which pumps and put you at risk for different types of cancers. So if you think about the impact of abuse, it's very, very broad, but the summary is every illness that you can see in the body, heart disease, digestive issues, some cancers, arthritis, pain. Yes. And sometimes you can even feel it like immediately, like sometimes when you are stressed, you feel a tightening in your chest. Sometimes when you are worried, you have instant headache. So it's all intertwined and interrelated. And the key is the consistency. So you definitely, once you feel it, your move is to break that cycle, is to understand it for what it is. So if you think about, for example, stress, once you start getting stressed and start getting a headache, it should just tell you, okay, if I don't take care of this now, these can lead to depression. Depression can lead to heart disease. Heart disease can lead to heart attack. It can lead to a stroke. It can lead to all of these things. It starts and it progresses and leads to all of these things. Then you identify it immediately when you start feeling stressed or burnout. Then you say, okay, what is my coping skill to fight against this? Then you go and do something to neutralize that stressor like immediately. So it is not it's not like it's one disease or illness that it leads to, but it's a risk factor for all of them. All major diseases and illnesses, whether it's any illness that you can think about in your body, when you have mental illness, it makes that even it makes the progression of the illness a lot faster.
Wow.
Or it can even cause the illness to actually start, even if it was dormant. So it leads to many different things. It causes many different things. You cannot really pinpoint, and that's why even when you go to the hospital when you were sick, when you have that initial intake from the nurse, they ask about everything. They ask about your sleep. They ask about your stress levels. They ask about your depression. They ask about your family history. They ask about the disease risk factors for your parents and grandparents, because everything is intertwined, interrelated, and interconnected. So it's a direct connection between mental illness, between abuse, and all these illnesses that I'm referring to. So it affects different people differently. So it's not one size fits all. For some people, when they get abused, they can have heart disease. For some people, when they get abused, they can have different forms of cancer. For some people, they can have major depression. They can have psychosis. For some people, they can have digestive issues. For some people, they can have arthritis. So it's a broad range of things that abuse can be a risk factor for. So it's not one thing. So think of it like that clear water in a bag. And when you're getting abused, it means you've poured something in that water and it ceases to be clean drinking water because it has been diluted with something else. So that thing can be abused. So, yeah.
Wow. 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 Dr. Chiangeh, this is not a conversation we can finish in one day. So I'm going to have you come back. Okay. We're going to talk more about this. There's so many other things that we need to talk about. But you said one thing, which I never understood, that abuse can cause arthritis. I never in my wildest dream thought that was the case. I remember when I was still with my abuser, my doctor diagnosed me with arthritis. And I kept saying, where did all the... I had no idea that it was related to stress. Trust me, my fingers had become stiff.
Right.
But I can move my fingers now. And this is a testament to the fact that healing is possible after you come out of abuse. My hashtag is there's healing on the other side of trauma. There's healing on the other side of abuse. The problem is many of us don't have the courage to leave. My encouragement to women who are still in abuse is whatever you do, number one, choose yourself, take care of yourself. And when the time comes, God will show you what to do to walk away, deliver yourself. Maybe stand up for yourself, I don't know. But there's so many things that, we still need to talk about that we cannot talk about today. So we're going to have a part 2. If necessary, we'll have a part 3. And I'm really, really grateful that you were able to come today. Before I leave, to my listeners, Dr. Chiangeh has written 2 books. First one is From Darkness to Light, Antidote to Depression. I'm sure you can see it. His specialty, like I said, anxiety is one of them. So if you need to reach him, to talk to him, consult with him, please let us know he's available. And then the second one is Anxiety, the Thief of Inner Peace. I can confirm that anxiety is the thief of inner peace. For the longest time, I had anxiety. I used to be afraid of what was coming next. So, I would have panic attacks. My heart would just go, boom, 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 boom. The doctor at one point was going to put me on medication for it because it was really, really bad. But no reason to be anxious anymore. Jesus set me
Yep.
free. I am free indeed.
Yes.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful
Good.
that, I am here today. Thank you again, Dr. Chiangeh, for joining me today. This has been really good. But again, we have to come back. We have to talk more and more about this so that women can know that, hey, you are that clear water. Somebody is dropping some colored substance into it that is poisoning your system, because that's essentially what it does. The system is being poisoned. You are in fight, freeze, flee mode 24/7. It eventually affects you. Incidentally, I just did a video on breaking the trauma bond. And one of the things I talked about is that the trauma bond is like an addiction to the victim. You find it hard to break it because you're thinking, I don't have anybody else. And so that's when you hear women say, he was my first love. He was the one that deflowered me. And I have children for him. Yes. But even the children are being impacted by this abuse.
Right.
Not just the victim,
Right.
And again, abuse has no gender. It could be male, it could be female. I have a young man in my life whose wife was a terror. They eventually went their separate ways, but he almost lost his mind from all the pressure. So it's not just women, but it could be anybody. And
Right.
if you're listening to this, please, if you know anybody who is in an abusive relationship, encourage them to take care of themselves, choose themselves, walk away, and just be healthy. Be healthy. Be healthy. Thank you again, Dr. Chiangeh. It's been a pleasure having you, but we will be back. And to my listeners, God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. God bless you. See you again soon.
So glad you joined us today. Please like, share, and subscribe. God bless you.